Hello students, Tom Simmons here with another installment of our introductory business series, and today's lecture is going to be an introductory lecture on the topic of management. And there are obviously many different subtopics of management, many different things to look at. Today I'm going to focus on two of what I consider to be some of the most critical aspects of management. And the first is the planning aspect of management, and the second are the critical skills that every manager ought to have in order to be an effective manager. So, let's start with the notion of what management is in the first place. And a very good textbook definition of management is that management is a process designed to achieve an organization's objectives by using its resources effectively and efficiently in a changing environment. And every element of that definition is really important, so I'll say it again. A process designed to achieve an organization's objectives by using its resources effectively and efficiently in a changing environment. Now, in an extreme example, let me offer you the example of the federal organization called FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which is the agency that is called into action whenever there is a national emergency, like a hurricane or a flood, tornadoes, Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Irene. They use the word management right in the title because that is in fact exactly what they're doing. It is a process that they implement to achieve specific objectives. And in their case, the objectives may be, I'm sure they are actually, the preservation of life, the safety of the workers, preservation of property, stabilization of the situation, and preventing further damage from occurring. There's certain specific objectives. They do this by using resources effectively. How many fire trucks do they have? How many ambulances do they have? How many available doctors, nurses, and hospital rooms are there? How many brush breakers? How many trucks? Do they have how much money is available immediately, because you've got to feed workers at the site. And they've got to be doing this in a constantly changing environment. A dam breaks. A situation goes from bad to worse. And they need to have communication and feedback and an ability to respond to a changing situation. Now, that's an extreme example, but it's a very good example of management, because all of those elements are present in the process that FEMA uses to address a national emergency. Management should be used in every business, and it's either used well or it's implemented very poorly. And while management of a business may not be dealing with critical emergencies that change every second, they still need to have a process. The process needs to be designed to achieve an organization's objective, not just because someone needs to show up for work. They have to use available resources, which are building and labor and capital, effectively and efficiently, and they've got to respond to changes in the environment, whether they be political or economic or in any other way, with competition. So management is really taking all of those elements and applying them every single day in a concerted manner. Management is not just coming to work because you're the salaried guy or you're the salaried woman and you've got some employees to direct, and hopefully you'll go in and things will go well today. That's not management. That's little more than babysitting, actually. Management involves very proactive tasks, at least if you're going to be a good manager. If you're just coming in to do your job, you're not really a good manager. Now, of the many different tasks that a manager has, directing employees and staffing, one of the most important is planning. And I'm going to emphasize planning in this lecture because it's one where many managers tend to fall down on the job. because they're so busy responding to a change, a crisis, something that was not anticipated, that they don't have time to sit and plan and think and work things through. But most middle and upper level managers at larger corporations, this is a regular part of their regular duties, and this is what they do, and this is what you should be doing in a small business as well. So, I'm going to use the example of Wentworth Bookstores, which is a fictional chain of bookstores, but I'll be honest, I'm basing it on a real chain of bookstores that I personally worked for. I was the buyer for the whole chain and a manager of one of their stores. So let's take the Wentworth Bookstore chain. And Wentworth Bookstores has, maybe 10 stores up and down the East Coast, all in malls, all in very, very high traffic areas, very suburbanized areas, fairly middle to upper middle class areas. New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, Virginia, Florida. As a manager of an operation like that, there are 4 different plans or 4 different planning processes that you need to have in place at all times. And very often, managers are good at 1 or 2 of them, but they don't see them all the way through. And I find that even when I ask students to plan out something you're going to do for me, even if it's planning making dinner, much less running a business, students tend to be very good at giving a general idea as to where they want to be, what they want to do, but very, very poor on very specific particulars of how to get there. And that's the reason for these different levels of planning within a management function. So, we're going to look at strategic, tactical, operational, and contingency planning. All 4 are different. The first 3 feed off of one another, but they are different. So let's take the strategic plan. Every business ought to have a strategic plan. The strategic plan asks the question, what? What do we want to do? What do we want to look like 5 years from now? So a strategic plan might be to increase sales of books by 10% every year over the next 5 years. Notice that a strategic plan first is fairly general. It is a big picture approach to planning. If we could just kind of wave a wand and look 5 years into the future, what do we want to see? And it is long term, meaning a 5-year plan is not all that unusual. So our bookstore chain, Wentworth, may decide what they want to do is increase sales 10% every year for the next 5 years. Some other company may decide they want to increase market share. Some other company may say they want to increase profit by a certain amount. I said sales. That's okay. They can all be different. In our case, the strategic plan is to increase sales. The tactical plan is how you do it. And this is where many managers begin to fall apart. Yes, I want to increase my sales 10% every year. That's nice. How do you plan on doing that? So a tactical plan answers the question, how are you going to get where you want to get? We now know where you want to go. How are you going to get there? In other words, you've got a destination. What roads are you taking? What is your GPS telling you? So, for Wentworth Books, the how may include elements such as the following. We will open 2 new locations within the next 5 years. Due to the fact that we see a growing number of retirees, we have an aging population, and these people tend to have a lot of disposable income and a lot more time on their hands than full-time workers, we are going to expand and promote our retirement planning section, and even more importantly, our leisure and travel section, in an effort to capture a greater part of that particular market. We are also going to take advantage of the fact that all of our locations are near the ocean and near tourist destinations, and we're going to expand our tourist-based gift books, so that people coming to the area might buy a nice $30, $40, $50 coffee table book that's got lots of pretty pictures of the boats or the harbor or the beaches that they just visited. We're also going to offer print on demand within the next year, so that any customer can come into our store, and even if we don't stock the book, can say to us, I would like this print on demand book, and we will say we will have this printed out for you within an hour. Enjoy your shopping, come on back. And we'll have it all bound up pretty for you. And, because tactical plans have many different elements, we may decide that we are going to have a monthly media event. And by a monthly media event, what I mean is that we're going to do something that draws people into our store, that gives us good publicity within the community, that is worthy of a press release, and creates interest. So, for instance, if we're going to promote in March a particular new Chinese cookbook, we may bring in a famed or a noted cook who does Chinese food very well, and we're going to set him up right in the middle of our flagship store in the mall, and he's going to have hot plates and woks and ingredients, and he's going to be chopping up food and cooking food and giving out samples, and we're going to invite people to come on in and taste those samples and invite them to purchase that book. In April, perhaps we have a fiction novel coming out that involves Ninja Warrior Society in Japan. Well, we're going to have someone maybe doing some sword dances, or sword manipulation, dressed in ninja outfit, safely sequestered somewhere in the store, and we're going to let the different martial arts people around town know, and we're going to invite people in. We're going to make a media event every month, and people will get used to all the fun things we do in the store, and selling the books will be a part of that. So there is my tactical plan. It's not just, hey, this is what I'm going to do. We have very, very specific ideas of how we're going to increase sales in this bookstore chain. Our new locations, our expanded retirement planning and leisure sections, an increased number of gift books that promote local tourist areas. We're going to offer print on demand for the internet generation, and we're going to have these monthly media events. That's our tactical plan. So now we have the what, and we have the how. Even many managers who get that far, even many students who get that far when they're writing up a fictional or their own for real plan, stop there. And that's not enough. Having great ideas of what's going to be done is not enough. You need to go to the next step. And that next step is called the operational plan. Strategic asked, what do we want to do? Tactical asked, how are we going to get there? Operational is asking the question, who's doing it and when are they doing it? I want names, places, dates, locations. So the operational planning for the tactical plan that we just developed might be as follows. Upper level manager or the vice president of marketing will hire a new IT systems manager by the end of the next 4 months, who will specifically be put in charge of establishing a print-on-demand system throughout the chain by the end of the fiscal year. Boom! We know who is going to take care of that task and when it's got to be accomplished by. As part of the operational plan, we may say, each store manager, Jane, Jill, Colleen, Tim, Joe, Brian, Sally, you are no longer doing inventory. This is something that your bookstore staff ought to be able to do. It's very mechanized, it's very technological now. We don't need to stand there and look at bookshelves and count books. That is to be passed on to your bookstore staff. You, however, are taking on the task of arranging for these media events in your store the first weekend of every single month. And since you as the store managers know what books are coming in a good 4 to 6 months in advance, what you will do is submit a plan to our chain headquarters. In fact, you'll submit it specifically to Harry, telling him what you have planned, when it will be, what the details are, because then we're going to give that information to Danny, who is our PR expert, who's going to get the press releases out and do the media marketing for you in your community for that particular event. And we need all this information at least 2 months before the event is planned. So I was very specific there. It's not, hey, let's have really neat events in the store. Who wants to do that? Rather, the operational plan says, by name, you and you and you are arranging it. You're deciding what you want to have in your store based on the books that are coming into your store. And you will tell us, you will arrange for it, and you will tell a particular person in our organization what's happening and when and what the details are, so that that person who is responsible for getting out public relations can get that out and market for you. It's very specific. Named individuals, a timeline. We know who is doing what, and we can hold them accountable for achieving those tasks on those dates. You see, what we're doing here is exactly what I read to you in the very beginning. We have developed a process to achieve an organization's objectives by using our resources effectively and efficiently in a changing environment. So those 3 plans, the strategic, we want to increase sales 10%. The tactical, here's how we're going to do it. Here's all the different ways we're going to increase those sales. And the operational, here are the names and the dates of who is doing what to make sure that we achieve those objectives and we meet our deadlines and we get things done. Those 3, strategic, tactical, operational, must all 3 exist and all 3 work together. They can't exist in a vacuum. Each one informs the next. The strategic goal informs the tactical plan. Well, how are we going to get there? The tactical plan informs the operational. Well, now who do we assign to do what? So you need all 3. And very often, we don't have all 3 in business. We have a general idea of what we want to do, and hopefully someone does it. And then when it doesn't get done, or we're late doing it, managers are running around trying to catch up, flying by the seat of their pants to get something done that should have been done 2 weeks earlier, but it wasn't assigned to anyone because the plan wasn't actually produced. It was simply an idea in someone's head. If you get nothing else out of this lecture but this, I am begging you, as a manager in a business organization, plan, write it down. Develop a plan, implement, execute the plan. And then, when you've gotten through that cycle, you can take a look at how you did. Did we meet our objectives? Did the people who were named do what they were supposed to do in the time given? Were we unrealistic in thinking they could do that in that amount of time? If they did what we asked them to do, and we didn't meet our goal of 10%. How is it that our tactical planning didn't achieve our objectives? Where did we go wrong in the development of that plan? There is a fourth type of planning. It does not feed off of the strategic, tactical, operational, but is separate from it. And so I haven't gone into that yet, but I'll do that next. And that's contingency planning. Contingency planning is what you do when crisis hits. I am sure every one of you has had the situation where you had a car and everything was going along smoothly and you paid your bills for the month and you actually felt like you were having a good month, and then the car dropped a muffler or the water pump went. Something completely and totally unexpected went on you. It's towed to the garage and they tell you, oh, you've got a $400, $600, $800 bill on this car. And you're deflated and depressed because you thought you had the whole month covered, everything was going along, and now you've got no way to pay for this car. Contingency planning would have solved that problem. And contingency planning in a household situation like that would mean you keep one credit card open with nothing on it, specifically for emergencies. Or you have a savings account with 2 or 3 months living expenses that you don't touch, specifically for emergencies, so that if there is a problem, you have the means of covering it without sitting down and saying, now what do we do? Because what you do has already been determined and you simply put that plan into action. So for our bookstore, many things might happen. We're doing print-on-demand books. We have customers' names in our database. We have an email list. What if our computer breaks down? What if we lose everything on our server? Have we backed everything up every month in an independent location? That will be part of a contingency plan. What happens if we're negotiating a location for our new store, which we're so excited about, and something goes wrong? Maybe the new strip mall that's being developed doesn't get a certificate of occupancy because the builder didn't build the concrete to the right specs and the town or the city will not give it a permit. Now here we are having done all this planning and maybe ordered all this inventory for books and we can't get in. Do we have another location in mind? Contingency planning would say, all right, well, we're going into this location in Boca Raton on this street. But until we are in there and the lease is signed and we're operational, just in case we have a real estate agent on call or we have an alternate location that might work, or we have something in place so that we can say, okay, plan B, put it into operation. And what about that person we're hiring to do all of our print-on-demand IT work? What happens if something happens to her? Either she gets a new job and leaves suddenly, or she wins the lottery and decides to retire to Tahiti, or some illness befalls her. Then what? If she's the only one who knows how this system works. A contingency plan would be to have every other single person in IT cross-trained in some of the basic operation of that print-on-demand system, so that if we lose a key player, we are not scrambling going, oh my God, what do we do now? How do we do this? We implement plan B. We have something ready and in place. That's contingency planning. You can't have a contingency plan for everything, but when you notice that there is a potential risk, that's the time to say, you know what, we should have a contingency for this. And there's nothing wrong with having a contingency for the possibility of losing an employee, of losing a customer base, of losing a piece of real estate, of losing a supplier. In Wentworth Books, I'll give you one very good example of that. At one point, upper-level management wanted very much to not deal with many different publishers. They didn't want bills and orders coming in separately from Bantam Books and Ballantine Books and Simon & Schuster Books and Doubleday Books. They wanted to work through a single wholesaler. And they put themselves in the position of relying entirely on a single wholesaler who carried the books from all these different publishers. And when that wholesaler went bankrupt, now they were missing relationships with 30 or more publishers that they had previously established but had broken. Have a contingency plan when one problem could be a big problem. So, those are the 4 different types of planning I want you to definitely be aware of and to practice in your own business or in whatever business you happen to go into. Look for the strategic plan. What do we want to do? What do we want to be in 5 years or 10 years? Tactical planning. How are we going to get there? What are the exciting plans we got going? 3, who's going to do it? And when are they doing it? What's the timeline for it? And 4, just so we don't get the wind taken out of our sails, contingency planning. Do we have our the major factors that could hurt us, the major chinks in our armor, our Achilles heels? Do we have a plan B? So that if something goes wrong, we're not panicked, we're not happy, but we're not panicked. We simply move on to plan B, and it's in place and ready to go. So, those are the 4 types of planning. The other topic I'd like to talk with you about today are the skills that effective and good managers ought to possess. And there are 5 skills that managers ought to possess. And I'm going to ask you to bear with me 1 second. I'm actually going to pause this for a second. And we're going to look at skills, management skills, in the context of another company. Okay, here we are back again. You might have noticed I changed my shirt, and I did that for a reason. When we look at the 5 skills, the 5 skills that effective managers need to have to be effective, I'm going to take you, imaginarily, to Red Bull Stadium in Harrison, New Jersey. Some of you may know that in 2012, Major League Soccer in the United States drew more fans to games than basketball and hockey. And soccer is quickly becoming one of the Big 5, there only used to be the Big 4, major professional sports leagues in the United States. Red Bull Stadium in Harrison, New Jersey is the first stadium that was built specifically for a soccer team. Most Major League Soccer teams actually use football stadiums or baseball stadiums or share someone else's stadiums. The Red Bulls have their own, and it's a 25,000-seater stadium. It's a big stadium. So, we're going to look at leadership skills that are required through the eyes of managing a stadium like that. And the 5 skills we're going to look at that every good, effective manager ought to have are leadership, technical, conceptual, analytical, and human relations. The first set of skills are called leadership skills. And leadership is really a way to get the employees to participate in management's goals. It is a way to influence employees towards the goals that you have and which the company has. It's sharing your vision because you've done the planning, you know what the strategic plan and the tactical plans are, and it's encouraging those employees to buy into that plan by encouraging them, training them, promoting them, leading them in carrying out those tasks. Now, there are 3 different leadership styles. And I'm going to say from the outset that none of them are wrong and none of them are right as a general rule. They are right or they are wrong for the specific situation, for the specific company, for the specific job description, for the specific employees. But all 3 have their place. And the reason I chose Red Bull Stadium was because all 3 have their place within the operation of a stadium. The first leadership style is what we call autocratic. And many of you may bristle at this type of approach, because the autocratic approach is one where management tells the employees, here's what needs to be done, here's how it needs to be done, here's how you will perform this task. In other words, the decision is made at the management level, and employees are informed of those decisions and told to carry them out. Now that doesn't sound like a lot of fun. However, when it comes to something, let's say, like food safety, food handlers and food safety, what we don't do is tell our food handlers at the concession stand, well, if you want to wash your hands, I mean, that's okay, that's up to you. We don't tell them, hey, you know what, if that meat gets left out in the sun for 6 or 8 hours, just, put ketchup or mustard on it, don't tell anybody, and they'll never know the difference. We don't do that. There are very specific health codes, and violation of health codes can lead to sickness or death, and lawsuits, and fines, and it's not pretty. So it may be that when it comes to how do we handle our food, how are we going to handle the transfer of meat products, or products that can go bad in the heat or the sun, from the kitchen to the concession stands, how are we checking on them, and how long they've been there, that may very well not be an issue that we leave up to employees to chat about. That might be a situation, and this is very often the case in health and security situations, where management needs to say, this is how it must be done, and we cannot cut corners on this. So in that case, autocratic may work very well. A democratic form of leadership is one where the management continues to make the decision, but before the decision is made, employees are consulted. Information is gathered from employees. Management may come to labor or to employees and say, we have an issue we're trying to solve. Can you give us some of your feedback, some of your opinion on this or that? Management then takes that into consideration. Management makes the final decision. This might be the case with the ticket taker operation. Perhaps management is concerned that there's large crowds at particular gates and small crowds at others, or they're concerned that there is a bottleneck at bathrooms or concession stands near a particular gate. They may want to talk with the ticket takers. You've seen this. You've seen this because you're standing there the whole time. Do you notice that it happens at a particular time of the game? Is it when people are first arriving? Is it during is it an hour into the game? Is it give us some of your feedback, and do you think we should close this gate or open that gate? That's a democratic approach. And for an operation like that, it would make entirely good sense to actually get that feedback from the people who are on the front lines in order to inform the decision being made. The third type of leadership style is called free rein. Free rein leadership style often works best when you're dealing with professionals, when you're dealing with artists, when you're dealing with people who come with a high degree of self-initiative and their own creativity, and they have a real sense of what it is they're doing and how they should be doing it. So for a free rein style of leadership basically says, you know what your job is. You've been hired because we hire hard and manage light. Meaning, we take our time, we hire the right person for the job, and then we get out of their way and let them do the job. We give them an indication as to what we expect will be accomplished. You don't just hire someone and say, do what you want. You do hire someone and say, all right, we need to produce X number of widgets by the end of the month. But in the free rein leadership style, you give the employee the goal, and then you let them find the way to get to the goal. Some people love this. Some people don't like it at all because they feel like they're floundering, and they'd rather be told, here's how you do it. Here's how you get to that number. So again, it depends on the type of employee, the type of operation going on. There's no one size fits all. Now, in our soccer stadium, it is very much the case that referees will be best managed under a free rein leadership. You hire them because they know what they're doing, and you get out of their way, and you don't interfere. And as long as they're down on the field when they're supposed to be there during the game, and they're making calls that make sense, at least to someone, you stay out of their hair. That's a free rein approach. So, one stadium, one business, but leadership styles might be autocratic, democratic, or free rein, depending on the specific employee, the specific operation going on. And sometimes it's hard for managers to switch from one style to another. And when that happens, they sound a little heavy-handed to some employees, and they sound a little flippant cavalier to other employees. So it's important to have the right leadership style with the right group of labor. That's skill number one, leadership. I promise the rest won't be this long. The second skill, a good manager has the technical skills for the operation, for the business within which they are employed. If you are employed as a manager in a particular business and you don't understand how the assembly line runs, you don't understand how the raw materials are loaded off of a plane into your warehouse and then produced into something and then shipped off, you're not going to be a very good manager, and you're not going to be respected by labor. In our soccer stadium, I would expect the manager of Red Bull Stadium would know the game. They would know the game, the basic rules of the game, the history of the game, who's going to be playing in the stadium, not just the other U.S. teams, but also visiting teams from Europe or Latin America. I would expect they would know what the player needs are from the moment they get there, into the locker room, through to their bench, onto the field, and back. I would expect they would know the traffic flow, where their customers are coming from. Are they coming via car, or are they coming via subway? If subway, what subway station? How does the lighting work? How does the PA system and the scoreboard work? They don't have to be electricians, but they need to have technical knowledge so that when they're making decisions, they're making informed decisions and it makes sense. And the more informed and the more technical knowledge about the stadium and the operation and the kitchen operation and the players and the fans and the security, the more information and knowledge that manager has, the more he or she will be respected by labor, and the more he or she will be able to influence them towards achieving the goals of the plans that are set. Now, the next several skills are actually closely related to technical. So for technical, think of that as knowing details, knowing how things work. Conceptual skills is knowing more than how individual things work, but seeing how the entire picture comes together. This is the creative juices. This is the manager who says, you know what? We've got a game that starts at night, and it happens to be Kids' Day that day. And it happens to be a Saturday, and there's no one on the subway, and there's no traffic coming from that particular road. Maybe we should have an all-day kids fair / circus, Ferris wheel, whatever you want to call it, and invite, because we now have an email list of all of our regular patrons, and we know which ones have children. Maybe we ought to have a whole kids' day. The conceptual enables the manager to sit back and see the whole picture, how everything fits together. I've actually seen this done at Gillette Stadium, also at a Major League Soccer match between the Red Bulls and Chicago Fire and the New England Revolution, where Gillette Stadium had a rock concert during the afternoon. Then had a brief break for people to come in who were just coming to the game and do their tailgating and all that, and then they launched into the game. So the big picture enables creativity and excitement on that big level. The fourth skill goes exactly the opposite, from the big to very, very specific. And this is called analytical, or the analytical skills. Analytical skills enable the manager to peel away all the stuff that doesn't matter, identify the very specific, very objective bits of data that he or she needs in order to solve a specific problem. So perhaps we are looking, someone has suggested we close Gate D because very few people come through Gate D. The analytical skill enables that manager to take a look at where will those people go. The ones who do go through Gate D, where are they coming from? Perhaps Gate D handles a good deal of the elderly and disabled, and this would be a total disaster if they were required to go into the gates that had much larger crowds of people going through. This person knows what the security issues are. They know what the traffic patterns are, but they can pull out what's important, and they can disregard what's not important. You know what? It's not important, really, that Ken has been stationed at Gate D as a ticket taker for the last 3 years. I understand he likes Gate D. That really doesn't figure into this conversation. So the conceptual, big picture, I get to see this whole thing taking place, and I have great ideas about what we can do. Analytical, we got an issue here, I think, with Gate D. If we close it, what happens? So, leadership, technical, conceptual, analytical, and then finally, human relation skills. And this can be the hardest of all. Because a manager with poor human relation skills, I don't care how smart he or she is not going to be respected, not going to be liked, and not going to be able to influence employees to achieve the organizational objectives. Human relation skills can be learned. Maybe you're not the friendliest, most wonderful person in the world, but you can learn. You can learn that people have names. And rather than saying, well, you two go to that gate, and I want you three up in section 220. How much nicer to be able to say, Carlos and Jimmy, if you can cover gate 2. And if Jane, Joe, and Jill, if you can be in section 220. People have names, they like to hear them used. Everybody wants to be heard. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, Tom, I'm trying to solve a problem here, and I don't get it, and I know you're here all the time. Can you help me out with this? Could be work-related. It could be personal, as opposed to work-related. You see the same employee racing from the parking lot 30 seconds before they're supposed to be at work every day, and they're panting and wheezing, and they're disheveled, and they look like they're overwhelmed. It's okay to say, hey, I saw you running across the lot again. Are you okay? Can we change your hours? Can we make them a little later? Is everything okay with you? It's okay to ask that. People like to be heard. They like to talk about themselves. And you don't need to do much talking. In fact, you don't need to do any talking at all. You only need to listen. Listening with your mouth shut is a great HR skill, because the other person gets to tell you about them and their life and what they're going through and what they see and what they know and what they think you could apply within the organization that could work. And they might have something. You can dedicate yourself to making other people look good. It's not your job as a manager to catch everyone, because you don't like any of them. But what a wonderful thing it is to be able to praise one of those employees in front of other employees and to tell them they did a great job, or they handled a very difficult customer very well and very professionally. Give them praise, give them accolades, make them look good, and dedicate yourself as a manager to making them look good. It will come back in loyalty to you. It's also okay to walk away and say nothing. Once you've said something, it's out. You ain't never putting it back in the bottle. So if you've got an employee who is obviously stressed and saying things and you want to snap right back and give them a proverbial kick in the butt, back off. You don't need to. You don't need to show them that you can be the bigger hothead, or that you can yell louder, or that you can lord it over them. Sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away and return to the situation after you breathe a little bit, and after they've breathed a little bit. And many times they'll come to you apologetically. There's no sense in trying to solve something when everyone is trying to gain the upper hand. Lastly, thank you. Everybody repeat that. Thank you. It's not hard. Human relation skills are what they sound like. Relationships with human beings. Being human and not a robot or an automaton with automatic answers. Being invested in the welfare of your employees. And letting them know that you're interested in their welfare, their well-being, their health, their happiness at the company. And giving them a reason to say, you know what? I'm going to work for that guy. I'm going to work for her. She needs this done, and I know it's going to make me crazy, but if we all pull together, we're going to get it done. If you want to influence employees to reach organizational goals with you, to carry out and execute successfully all the planning you've done, you can only do it if they consider themselves to be on your team. Make them part of your team. Thank you for being part of this class and this team as we go through learning about business together.